Hey everyone, welcome. So today we are going to talk about Ted Bundy's date of birth and what happened to him, what went wrong in his life. And we're going to look at the numbers and then really quickly at the astrology to know how someone could be born and have just all of these evil tendencies within their lives. If you're new here, I'm a Vedic numerologist and astrologer, and I teach you all about how to look at your date of birth and understand your place in this material dimension. So let's get started on Ted Bundy's date of birth. This right here is a Vedic grid. I will leave a link for how to do it, but we're going to do it really quickly so we can get the numbers in his grid and see what went wrong in his life, because he was not a good person. So he was born in November, and so that's going to be 2 1s. Those will both go here. He was born on the 24th, and so the 2 will go here. The 4 will go here. We always add the date of birth up. If it's 2 digits, that's a 6. That goes here. We don't take the first 2 numbers of the year of his birth. We just use the last 2. So another 4 and a 6, a 4, and then another 6. And then we have to put in his destiny number to complete the grid. All of the numbers added up down to one condensed number. He had a destiny number of 1, which was ruled by the sun. I am going to show you the simplified Vedic grid really quickly too. I'll leave a link for that. We just put all of these numbers out in one line. So November, the 2, the 4, the 24 added together is a 6. We don't use the 19 from his century. We add the 4 and the 6, and then his destiny number was a 1. And so we put that in as well. So this is just the simplified Vedic grid that I created in case you don't want to memorize where all of the numbers go. And so when I talk about numbers, you can just see what numbers are in someone's, date of birth to understand what's happening. So Ted Bundy, in case you don't know, unalived 30 women that were confirmed, and there are sources that indicate that it was significantly higher than that. He was not a good person, and we're going to see what happened, what went wrong in his life. So the first thing that we want to look at is all of these ones. So number 1 in your date of birth is positive. It's known as positive 1. Ted Bundy had 3 1s in his date of birth. Having 1 is positive. It gives someone a strong sense of ego, but they're not egotistical. Now, having multiple 1s, if one of those numbers is not a destiny number, makes someone appear that they have a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem, but in fact, their self-confidence is usually low, and it can fluctuate between being very confident within certain times of their life and then having really low self-esteem at other times in their life. But nonetheless, they are going to exert this persona as being confident, but they in fact have a lot of confidence and self-esteem issues. Now, if you have multiple 1s and one of them is a destiny number, that makes you very confident. It is not just something that you're exuding. You actually have a lot of confidence. And this is what Ted Bundy did. He had multiple 1s. Now, having multiple 1s will give someone a lot of leadership skills. It gives them confidence. People look up to them. But the negative aspect of having multiple 1s is it makes people incredibly authoritative. It is either their way or the highway. It can create a lot of dominance within a person's life. And this is going to be a problem. Now, we can see through Ted Bundy's the other numbers in his grid is that he has 2 number 6s. This is represented by the planet Venus. Having 1 6 is positive. It helps you to enjoy the luxuries in life and have good relationships and have, a strong sense of love and what that means. Think of that Venus and Pisces energy. Having 2 number 6s is -6. It makes someone either materialistic, it makes them have problems in relationships, problems with women. It creates a lot of problems in your life, and you have to look to the astrology to really understand where it's coming from. Now, he has 1 2, and this has to do with the energy of the moon and being nurturing and caring and creative, and having 1 2 is positive. But the problem is the Venus and the moon are always conjunct, right? You can see that here. They're always conjunct. And so even though his number 2 moon is positive, it's being afflicted by the negative Venus energy because he has 2 number 6s. And so that is going to create some problems in his life. He's going to have a difficult time expressing his love and his creativity, especially to women in his life. It's going to be a struggle. Now the 2 and this is moon opposite Rahu, right? Moon and Rahu. Having 2 4s is positive, right? But this 2 and 4 with no number 8 creates a lot of problems in life. Number 8, Saturn, brings a sense of karmic responsibility and a sense of stability within the material world. And when someone has this yoga here, it can make them have some mental health issues. And clearly Ted Bundy did in fact have these problems. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out. He did not have a number 9 Mars. That will bring in a sense of humanitarianism into a person's life. He did not have a number 3 Jupiter. That was missing from his chart as well. This would bring in a sense of optimism and caring, and understanding the higher purpose in life. He did not have that either. He did not have a number 7, which is ruled by Ketu. Now 7, as you can see, because it's in the middle of the Vedic grid, and we can see down here, right? He had no number 7, no number 9. You can still look at all of these things. It's just helpful to use the Vedic grid to really see the yogas and oppositions. But nonetheless, you can still use this lineup of numbers to see the numbers he didn't have. Then again, but going back to the number 7, K2, this brings stability to the entire chart. And so people that don't have a number 7 or they have multiple 7s are going to experience instability in life. And then the final thing is Ted Bundy did not have a number 5, which is Mercury. And that's the ability to be self-reflective and analyze what is happening in life. And so that's kind of the basis of what we initially see within his numerology. So let's go a little bit further. Let's take his time of birth. We're going to add everything up. We have the 1035. That comes to the number 9, which is ruled by Mars. And so why is the number 9 important, especially within Ted Bundy's grid? It's because number 9, ruled by Mars, represents our energy and our drive. And it speaks a lot to us being able to get things done in a proper way. And you can see he has no 9. He has all of these 1s, which is the sun, and that's his destiny number. We always have to look and see what the destiny number is doing. And so his destiny number, which is ruled by the sun, was in the nakshatra of Anuradha. This is again per the sidereal Vedic system of numerology and astrology. His sun was at 9 degrees and 9 minutes. So Anuradha is in Scorpio. Let's look when we add those up. And remember, this is the most important placement in his chart because it's his destiny number. It was who he was going to become. And so 9 plus 9 is 18. And when we condense the 18 down to one number, 1 plus 8 equals 9. And so again, number 9 ruled by Mars. So Mars is shaping up to be really important in Ted Bundy's life. And the reason it's important is why? Because there is no number 9 in his grid. He had a really big problem with going through life and functioning correctly in everything that he went after in an appropriate way. And so number 9 is not a good number for him. And so when a number is not in someone's grid, it doesn't mean that the planet's not operating in their lives, right? All of the planets are operating in our lives all of the time. When the number's lacking in your date of birth, you're kind of going in life without really thinking about that planet and what it represents and being introspective and how to make things better. You know, there's not as much karmic weight to that planet. And so he was not self-reflective about the number 9 Mars in his life, about what he was actually going through and doing in life. He wasn't reflective about that. And what's interesting is Mars was in the nakshatra of Jyeshta. And so Jyeshta nakshatra can be a spiritual nakshatra, but it is also people that have prominent planets within Jeshta also have a lot of desires, and it can be very challenging. And what's interesting is he had his Mars, his moon, as well as Ketu in the nakshatra of Jeshta. And so, right, his moon is there. His moon right here is getting very much influenced by these desires. It's with Ketu and Mars. So Mars and moon together is going to make him agitated. And then, with Ketu there, Ketu and the moon together do give a person very deep intuitive insights as well as psychic abilities. And so this was creating a lot of problems in life, this lack of number 9 Mars, because it's making his mind very agitated and he's not able to be introspective about it because he doesn't have a number 9. And that's not, the karma that he's really meant to focus on. And so that was creating problems as well. Okay, so let's look a little bit further. We mentioned that his sun was in Anuradha Nakshatra within Scorpio at 9 degrees 9 minutes. So his sun being in Scorpio wasn't an inherent problem, right? He was going to be a very deep, intense individual. The problem is that he has all of these ones. And so when you have all of these ones and one of them is your destiny number, the sun is going to be operating at a very low vibration. It's going to be taking on all of the negative qualities of Anuradha and what it represents. He's going to be controlling, manipulative, deceitful. There's going to be problems with anger. He's not going to be able to be introspective. And then there also is going to be a lack of nurturing within his early life. A lot of times it's around the maternal figure, so the mother, right? And we can see this. He has all of these ones squared to his moon. And I know that his mother had him out of wedlock. And at the time that was, not always considered appropriate within the culture, in the 40s. And so she was known to him while he was younger as his sister. And then he found out later on that was in fact his mother. And she did, support him after he did all of his unaliving of these women, and she was there for him. But nonetheless, this affected him very deeply, and that would very much indicate, why he in his mind probably felt there was a lack of this nurturing once he found out that was really his mother, right? And then the other thing that Anuradha can cause at a lower vibration is for people to move around a lot. He did in fact do this when he was being evil to all these women. It happened within multiple states. And so that's that lower energy of Anuradha. Okay. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention is we can see that his sun is not operating well. We also have to look at the D9 Navamsa chart. So that is going to be the chart. Again, this is per, the sidereal system, but the D9 Navamsa chart is going to show it's going to be the final say on what the planets are doing. And his sun in the D9 Navamsa chart was in the nakshatra of Hasta. And it was at 22 degrees and 24 minutes. People that have planets in Hasta are usually very kind and caring. Its deity is Savitar. He's the sun god. The problem with this, with Ted Bundy's sun being in Hasta, is we know it's operating at the lowest vibration. So the lowest vibration of Hasta, right? Because he has all of these ones. He has 3 ones, and one of them is a destiny number. And so we know he's authoritative. He's controlling. He's going to bring in this manipulative, deceitful energy, right? Because it's taking the lower vibrations of Anuradha, and then we're going to see how that's funneling into Hasta, into the D9. So let's add these numbers up. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 comes to 10. And then the 1 plus 0 equals 1. So again, we can see more of this one energy. And so what we can do is we can add in, kind of this one right here, right? This isn't part of his birth chart or his Vedic grid, but we're going to add that number 1 in. And so it's even, further operating at this very low end of all of these ones. And what's so interesting with Hasta is it's represented by the palm of the hand, right? It's about manifesting what we are seeking and bringing it into the palm of our hand. The palm of the hand can also be used to reach out and shake hands with someone. It can, it speaks a lot to doing things with your hands. It can also be used to touch people and show love and affection. But when Hasta is operating at the lower end, and we know this because he has all of these ones, with one of them being the destiny number, he was using his hands to hurt people. And so that would be the very lowest vibration of Hasta. And he was, in fact, doing that, because when you look at his Navamsa, you're like, well, but how can it be bad? He has a sun in Virgo within Hasta nakshatra, which is represented by the moon. And so again, it's, because he's operating at the lowest form of Hasta. And then because Hasta is ruled by the moon, he was having problems because he has these 2 number 6s. His connection with women, we already know these 2 6s is -6, was at the lowest vibration. And so he was looking for this connection with women, but he was doing it at the most evil, lowest vibration possible. And then speaking of number 6, Venus, he in his D1 chart did have Venus within Libra, right? It's in its own sign, but we know it's negative because he has 2 6s. And we have to look at the D9 for the final say of what is happening with the planet Venus. And so Venus in his D9 was in the nakshatra of ARDRA. ARDRA is a very fierce, destructive nakshatra. It is known as the star of sorrow. And, if we look at where Venus was in ARDRA, it was at 7 degrees, 40 minutes. 7 plus 4 is 11. And then, I'm sorry, I'm running out of room here. So 7 plus 4 is 11. We have to get that down to one number. 1 plus 1 is 2. And so the placement of ARDRA, the placement of Venus in ARDRA nakshatra was represented by the number 2. And again, this 2 is being afflicted by the 2 6s. And, I want to speak really quickly about what Venus was doing in ARDRA. People with planets in ARDRA, it can go one of 2 ways. If there's not these malefic aspects, people are defenders of animals. They are usually vegetarian. Animal cruelty is not something that people, that have the higher vibration of ARDRA functioning in their life, they are not okay with that. On the flip side, people that have malefic aspects to ARDRA, malefic planets in ARDRA, are going to be operating at the lower vibration and do the opposite, and they're going to hurt animals. And because Ted Bundy within his Navamsa chart did have 2 6s and his Venus is in ARDRA at 7 degrees 40 minutes, he in fact was not kind to animals, especially in the earlier years of his life. And then because Venus is women, he additionally was not going to be kind to women. And again, having these 2 6s, we know, Venus is a soft planet, but we know that it's not operating well within his life. And so he was having that Venus in ARDRA. He was not going to be kind to women. And so that's what I wanted to say about ARDRA nakshatra. It was not functioning well in life, and ARDRA can be a positive nakshatra to take us out of this material dimension, right? Because all of the pyramids are pointing towards Orion's belt, and Betelgeuse, which is the star within ARDRA, is part of the constellation Orion. And so he was operating at the lowest vibration of what ARDRA was. And so, it was, of course, important to look at Venus, and then going back to him having a destiny number of 1. Now, if he had just had 1 and that was his destiny number, that would have been fine. But he had all of these 1s. 1 was a destiny number. He thought very highly of himself. right? He had no 5 to be introspective. We see he has some mental illness right here. There's no 7 to stabilize him, a lack of a 3, a lack of a 9. I mean, he was riddled with like all of these problems. But what's really interesting with the sun in ARDRA, it can have to do with isolated places, and he did in fact. This is where he took victims to isolated places. And so we can see that because that's the destiny number. So the places associated, with ARDRA nakshatra are going to, to come into play. And then also this is interesting. Criminal lawyers are also associated with ARDRA nakshatra. That can be, career options that people have with ARDRA prominent in their chart. And he was, in fact, he was his own lawyer in his trial. I know a lawyer was brought in to assist him. That's so, ARDRA. And what's interesting is he's so, there's just a lot of arrogance that is in his chart, with no ability to be introspective, or with a lack of a 7, no ability to be stable. So it would make sense. He was going to defend himself. He probably thought he was the best at it. And I know he did want access to the law books to, understand how to get off and potentially escape. But really what was happening is he wanted to be in charge. That is just so prominent in his chart. And we can see that all of these 1s are square to Rahu. And so he has a positive 4 within his date of birth, but it's being square to the sun. So the sun square Rahu, right? People with sun Rahu conjunctions within their chart are often become famous, but he became famous for the wrong reasons, right? And so this is because of all of this sun energy. And so one thing I wanted to mention as well is that in the D1, his ascendant is in Magha nakshatra. Magha is ruled by Ketu, right? Ketu is number 7, this right here, right? Just the lack of that fatherly presence. And that would have played a role in his life as well. And he did have 2 4s, which was positive. And so he was very, he was an outside of the box thinker. I have heard people say that he was intelligent. I don't agree with this. He didn't, what makes someone really intelligent is a 9 and a 5, even multiple 9s and a 5, a 9 and multiple 5s, or just multiple 5s. That is what is real intelligence. He didn't have that, but he did have 2 number 4s, and that can make someone smart too. It's this very outside of the box thinking. He could have used that, to have done something better, but this was quite a challenging grid. The other thing I wanted to mention is that because Ted Bundy was born on the 24th, right? That is his birth number. It's your talents in life, and it's who you know yourself to be. So your destiny number, right? All of the numbers added in the date of birth is who other people see you as and who you're meant to become. And it's inherently who you are. So he was a number 1, although very afflicted. He was a number 1, ruled by the sun. But going back to the birth number is who you think you are. It's not who you actually are, it's who you think you are. And so, he thought himself, to be this Venus energy, and people that are born on the 24th are, because that number adds up to 6, they are very magnetic. And by most accounts, people, especially as he became older, people did say there was something very charismatic about him. And that's how he got people to trust them, to then lure them in, right? But again, it's operating at a low vibration. We can see the 2 and the 4. That's what makes up the birth number. The 2 and the 4 are in opposition, and they're not functioning well. And it becomes a 6, and the 6 and the 2, that, right? The double 6s have hurt that moon energy, that caring, compassionate energy, right? The Venus double energy has hurt his mind. And so going back, that could very much be because of what happened with his mother and not being told who she really was, because apparently that really affected him in life. So I think that that's all that I'll discuss today on Ted Bundy. Please let me know if you have any questions. His date of birth was really set up for a lot of challenges, and unfortunately, all of those ones made him just so egotistical that he really was not able to reflect on anything in life and take responsibility clearly, for challenges that he had endured growing up, and he just took a lot of lives. And my heart goes out to all of his victims and their family members, and just the sadness that he left, in this material world. But please let me know if you have any questions. And then also, if there is someone you'd like me to do a Vedic grid numerology lineup on in the future, maybe someone from true crime, or, some figure in society that you're wanting to understand more about, please drop a comment and let me know, and we can look at that, because you guys are the ones watching, and I'd like to, put up charts and people that you're interested in, because I think by that we can understand, what's happening with people, because sometimes you wonder, how can someone be so cruel? And then when you look at their numbers, right, we can never, separate Vedic numerology from the astrology. We have to, take everything from the numerology and then go deeper and really understand it in the astrology, right? Because at first glance, Ted Bundy having Venus and Libra would seem like, oh, great, like what's the problem? But then when we see, well, it's coming from, 2 -6s in his grid, and then we look further into the D9, we can see why it all just, went horribly wrong. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you soon on the next video. Bye, friends.